Congress is not in session right now, but one of Washington's favorite things to fight about, a Supreme Court vacancy, appears to be on the horizon. And as such, Republicans are itching to make it as big a political fight as they possibly can this election year. Of course, nothing has happened yet. There's not a nominee or even a vacancy yet. But clearly, Republicans want their next big fight to be about the Supreme Court. Here's the context of them wanting that. In the House, when you vote on something, all you need is half of the House plus one. You need a simple majority. That's all you need to pass legislation in the House. In the Senate, the rules are the same. You can get things passed with a simple majority, 51 votes. Except in the Senate, if you're in the minority, you can also invoke a special procedural rule that used to not be used very often, which says for this particular item, you need more than 51 votes. You need 60 votes. You need a supermajority in order to get something done. In the Constitution, there's only a couple of things that are considered important enough to require a supermajority, things like ratifying treaties and changing the Constitution and impeachment. But in the Senate, they've decided that Senate rules let them require a supermajority whenever the minority feels like forcing the issue. And it used to be really rare. In the 1950s, it was never used more than twice in any two-year session of Congress. In the 1960s, it was never used more than 7 times in any two-year period. But look at how it's been used over the course of, just say for a random period, my lifetime, starting in 1973. As you can see, there's sort of a gentle upward drift in the number of times this rule was used, making it so that a supermajority was needed to get things done in the Senate. It's this sort of gentle drift up, right? But then 2006 happened. And in 2006, Democrats won a majority in the Senate. With that in mind, watch what happens with this infrequently used rule that gives the minority a chance to block a majority vote. Watch what happens starting in 2007, when Republicans suddenly found themselves in the minority. Boing! The filibuster had never been used this way before. It had never been used so frequently before the Republicans found themselves in the minority after the 2006 midterm elections. And ever since then, ever since 2007, Republicans have been acting ahistorically. They have changed the Senate into something it has never been before. In making it so that a simple majority doesn't actually rule anymore, they have done something unprecedented. It's something civics geeks have been hyperventilating about for 3 years now, trying to get the country to realize how important and unprecedented this change is for our democracy. But now, for this expected upcoming vacancy on the Supreme Court, Republicans are thinking about doing something really unprecedented. They're talking about taking their own party's unprecedented action to a whole new level. The only time a Supreme Court nominee has been successfully filibustered in this country was in 1968. President Lyndon Johnson wanted to elevate Abe Fortas from being an associate justice to being Chief Justice. Now, when LBJ nominated Mr. Fortas to be Chief Justice, Mr. Fortas was already in political trouble for being too close to the president, for advising him on policy matters, for example, for writing his State of the Union address one year, for accepting thousands of dollars in outside payments on top of his Supreme Court salary as well. So Mr. Fortas' nomination was filibustered successfully. He was not allowed to rise to Chief Justice. And the following year, he actually became the first ever Supreme Court justice to resign under threat of impeachment after news got out that he had secretly taken a $20,000 retainer from a Wall Street financier who wound up in prison. That story, that remarkable anomaly from the otherwise totally staid, boring history of the Supreme Court, is the only Supreme Court nominee to have ever been successfully filibustered. The guy who was about to be impeached for taking side money. And now, Republicans are saying straight out of the gate that they may very well filibuster again this year. So the entire history of Supreme Court filibusters in our nation, they say, will be Abe Fortas and then President Obama's nominee this year. And I mean, I suppose it is understandable. I mean, given how extreme the nominee is, who President Obama has... I'm sorry, what? Oh, he hasn't. I'm sorry, President Obama hasn't actually picked anyone yet. I'm sorry. Actually, there's not even a vacancy yet. Oh, never mind, though. Republicans are letting it be known that they may filibuster this nominee who doesn't exist. Republicans are prepared to go to unprecedented lengths to stop this nominee who doesn't exist from filling a vacancy that doesn't exist.
Are you willing to pledge right now that the GOP will not filibuster whoever the president nominates?
It'll all depend on what kind of a person it is. I think the president will nominate a qualified person. I hope, however, he does not nominate an overly ideological person. That will be the test.
Here's the thing. The justice who might retire is John Paul Stevens. He's a liberal. Barack Obama is therefore very likely to replace him with a liberal so that the balance of the court won't change. And frankly, it may be a little unreasonable to expect a Democratic president to replace a liberal Supreme Court justice with, say, a conservative who would move the court dramatically to the right. But who here is willing to bet that being a liberal is going to be enough to meet John Kyle's definition of someone who is so overly ideological that they must be filibustered? Joining us now, someone whose name has been floated as a potential nominee for this seat. I'm dying to know how seriously she's taking that. Senator Amy Klobuchar, Democrat of Minnesota, a member of the House, the Senate Judiciary Committee. Hello.
Well, hello, Rachel.
Thanks for coming in.
But as you see, I'm wearing the wrong color to be on the Supreme Court.
Well, your microphone is black.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's very slimming.
And also, there's all those old speeches of mine that you would find. Remember the Sotomayor wise Latina?
Yeah.
Where I called myself a wise Slovenian. So it's over before it even started.
I don't know if you really got the Slovenian people behind you in America.
Yes,
it could be an unstoppable
it's a small
political
but mighty
bloc.
country. That's right.
Is it flattering to be mentioned? Is it just awkward? Is it both?
No, it is, but I love my job now. And as you know, as you pointed out with the Senate, there's a lot of work to be done there.
Yes.
And I think we need people that are willing to push the envelope to get things done, to work across the aisle and get things done. And I think that we've started to. I remember the last time I was on, you referred to the Senate, do you remember this, as a dysfunction junction?
That's right.
But I will say the train has left the station now. Since we met, well, we passed health care reform. We passed the jobs bill. We passed the extenders. We now have more to do on that. We got the FAA reauthorization, aviation, travel promotion. We're moving. And part of that, and I think part of the answer to the filibuster, as much as I'd like to see reform and hope we do it, but is calling people out. When they slow down the process, when Jim Bunning gives his finger not just to the media but to every employed worker in this country, we called him out. We've started being more aggressive about calling people out when they're doing these things. And if you want to lead to true bipartisanship, I think you have to be honest with the American people about what's happening.
But the Bunning story is I think, a telling one, because it is true that Democrats and some Republicans even called him out when he blocked unemployment benefits for all those people in the country. Now Republicans are blocking unemployment benefits again, and Republicans in leadership positions are saying things like, we're all Jim Bunning now. So we should have stood with Jim Bunning the first time around. We're all going to do that now.
Well, at their own peril. And that's what I think when you look at the Supreme Court justice nominee and whoever it's going to be, the point of this is that the American people want us to keep working on jobs, financial regulation, to move forward on homegrown energy. And they do it at their own peril if they want to devote the summer to blocking a nominee. And when you look at, say, Sotomayor, who they claimed was, they called her all kinds of names, 95% of the time she voted with a Republican nominee when she was on a three-judge panel. And most scholars that looked at her record said she was basically a moderate, that she wasn't extreme. And so I actually believe in reality here, that some of the names that have been put forth that the president could nominate, who clearly would be Democratic nominees, but when you look at, say, a Lindsey Graham, what he said with Sotomayor, remember that speech, it was pretty courageous. He said, look, I wouldn't have picked her, but my job is to look at who's qualified. Do they have the qualifications? And I'm proud to vote for her. And I'll never forget that moment. And that's what I'm hopeful will happen here as well.
I think it's not an accident that it was Senator John Kyle this weekend who floated the idea of, again, filibustering a non-existent nominee for a vacancy that doesn't exist. Because he's already outraged by the prospect of this non-existent person. But Senator John Kyle made those same comments within a week of the election in 2008. At that point, he was already talking about filibustering a Supreme Court nominee.
Right.
On the other side of the aisle, they see some political advantage to mounting a filibuster campaign here, as historic as it would be.
They do, but in the end, on the Sotomayor case, as you know, they backed down. There were a lot of people within their own party who had different feelings about her. They didn't want to piss off every Hispanic voter in the country. They knew that she had some qualities. Didn't mean they all voted for her, but they sure, you know, they asked her tough questions, and then the hearing got done, and she got confirmed. And I'm hopeful that will happen as well in this case.
Optimism.
I am, but it happened with
I resist
Sotomayor.
it, but I can feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel it in the room. When I look at that graph that I showed in the intro here of the filibuster over time, looks like a half pipe. it makes me think, hey, this needs to be fixed. Hey, this is a problem that's being abused. Does it make you feel that way too? Does it make people in the Senate generally feel that way?
Especially some of the newer senators that have come in that aren't just, steeped in the tradition of this wonderful filibuster. We see it as a problem. A lot of us have managed our organizations, and we like to move forward and get things done. So there are a lot of efforts to reform. I will point out the last person that was successful in reform was Walter Mondale from Minnesota.
That's right.
It was 67 votes, and he got it down to 60. So a number of us are saying, well, can we get the number down some more? Can we still allow for this debate? Can we allow for people to have to actually stand on the floor and push the filibuster so they have to own what they're doing? If they want to filibuster unemployment benefits for people who are out of work for no fault of their own because Wall Street messed up, are they going to actually take to the floor and do that day after day after day? That's another reform that we'd love to see.
And you'd support that?
Yes.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, Democrat of Minnesota, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And I don't know, I think you could talk them into pink robes.
Yeah, that would be a very nice touch.
Would look really good on everybody.
So, especially on Scalia.
I was just going to say, especially on Alito, but you're totally right. It's Scalia. Thank you, Senator. Nice to see you.
Appreciate it.